Welcome to the Flow of Money podcast.
This is where high performance meets financial intelligence. In these discussions, we combine the performance science of flow and flow states with practical wealth management strategies.
The intent is to build a resource for those who believe that high performance mental states can impact wealth and abundance in all its forms so that you can make the impact you want in the time that you have.
Let's get started.
My name is John O'Day, and I'm a financial advisor. My love is cash flow. I truly love the cash flow generated by businesses for the positive impact that this cash flow can have on the owners, their employees, and their broader community. And this cash flow is never more important than when the owners of these businesses start to execute their exit and succession plan. I just love it all and can't wait to help.
I'm Dave Gieselman, flow state coach, breathwork facilitator, and former chef turned high performance nerd. I help leaders and creatives build clarity, confidence, and capacity, teaching the science of staying cool under pressure so you can think clearly and execute fast, especially when things go sideways.
Looking at the word. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Episode 2, after we spoke for 5 minutes and realized we needed a new episode. Yeah. What is your experience in those zero tolerance environment participants and taking them through the sort of breathwork stuff? I mean, because part of the challenge is I can imagine introducing the concept into a structure that is cognitive first.
Right.
Becomes challenging, right? Because they want to think themselves calm. That's how they're trained.
Right. It's funny. The higher level person you're dealing with, the easier that conversation is, right? So there we go. Really high performers get
the physiology. Snipers are a great example. Snipers know to slow their breath down because it means their hands are less shaky. They not only pull the trigger between breaths, but between heartbeats. Yep.
Right. And so they're really, really cognizant of their physiology. But for most snipers, that is an adaptation, not a fundamental understanding, right? It is an adaptation. I learned to write everything on whiteboards because I didn't know it was an adaptation to ADHD. I was just trying to keep everything in front of me.
Right.
Because if I was trying to keep it all in my mind, it was just too much stuff. I learned after I left kitchens and then covered half the walls in my home with whiteboards,
right,
that it was an adaptation to my ADHD. So instead of, a lot of chefs keep stuff in binders and they'll flip through binders, I wrote everything on the stainless steel refrigerator doors, right? Because it was line of sight and I didn't have to go flipping through. And everybody does it differently. Some people like clipboards and different stuff. I like to be able to look across the past and see everything that I'm doing. The things that not to forget about. I learned that was an adaptation, right? So snipers use the breath and they use sort of these tools as an adaptation. Nobody ever showed them, like, here's why that works and here's how to control that situation. So being able to
that education, I'm sure they're delivered rudimentary tools like this breath sequence, that breath sequence. They're taught something to slow their heart rate, right? And just additional information and detail would expand the types of tools or customizations or tweaks that they could make at the time. Yes.
I would be hugely surprised if they had an organized breath instruction piece. I would be phenomenally impressed if to learn that was a piece of the deal. I just don't think it is. I think they kind of
shouldn't be that hard,
right? I think they come to it, right? They come to that knowledge, but I don't think it's like, look, here's the deal.
Right. If you're shooting more than 1,000 yards, here's the 2-minute breath drill you should do before your hand approaches the trigger.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's that
prescriptive.
It's that delimited or prescriptive. Right. Exactly.
It's slow your breathing to slow your heart. Yeah. Well, how? It's do it. Calm down.
Right. Slow. And the problem is if you're trying to slow your breathing down, now you're either like tightening your breathing muscles or whatever, like engaging diaphragm in a useful way. And so you're actually creating more tension than you're solving, rather than going like 8-5-12-5 breathing. Right. So in for 8, hold for 5, exhale for 12, hold for 5, which is 2 breaths per minute, which is intense,
Interesting.
which most people can't do for more than 5 minutes.
That
8-5-12-5 breathing.
in 8, hold 5, out
Exhale 12.
out 12.
Okay, but the trick is inhale the entire 8, hold the entire 5,
Out the
exhale
whole
the
12 is
entire
hard. You got to
12.
practice that.
You got to practice.
Yep.
Right. And then hold 5. What's fun to do it is with a pulse oximeter,
Ooh,
and you sit there. Toys, yeah. And you can watch your blood oxygen saturation, which is good, good exercise. You know, you don't want to stay in that state, but it is good to do.
Is the blood oxygen saturation associated with the slowing of the heart rate, or they're related but distinct processes? How
They're
interrelated is the heart rate, blood saturation?
Yeah, I'll get into it real quick. So the heart rate, not as much. So CO2 is the driver for breath, right? So as when you hold your breath and that air hunger hits, that need to breathe hits, you are not experiencing a lack of oxygen. You are experiencing a buildup of CO2. The buildup of CO2 in your body is what drives the need to breathe. And so when we do prolonged breath holds, when we do like CO2 tables type exercise, which is a free diving exercise, and what it's designed to do is decrease the chemosensitivity of the receptors in your brain that register, right? So you're becoming desensitized to more and more CO2. So you can have a higher amount of CO2 globally without going, oh my God, I need to breathe, without it creating a stress response, right? And so there are very specific sort of exercises you can do. And so the more CO2, as your CO2, it's called the Bohr effect, BOHR. As CO2 increases, blood pH, your blood gets more acidic, right? So your pH goes down, it drops the pH, and your blood gets more acidic. As your blood gets more acidic, the hemoglobin becomes less sticky and releases oxygen more easily. So the more CO2 in your system, the more oxygen you're actually getting. So all of Patrick McEwen's work is around, the oxygen advantage guy is around slowing the breathing, decreasing your sensitivity to, and so you experience greater oxygen distribution and greater oxygen efficiency in the body because you're breathing less. And it's pretty interesting. So slowing the breathing, of course, slows the heart rate, but it is the amount of O2 and CO2 in the body that are going to determine your blood oxygen saturation. When you do an exercise like CO2 tables, which are fun, it's 8 rounds, and you do a prep for like a minute and a half. So you breathe in and out, warrior's breath for a minute and a half, deep in, Wim Hof style breathing, in and out. And what you're doing is you're off gassing a ton of CO2, and then you hold for 2 minutes. It's going to feel kind of easy. But then when you go back to it, you prep for a minute and 15 seconds, then a minute, then 45 seconds. You do 8 rounds. And so you're now back, you continue a 2-minute hold. So at the end, you're at 15 seconds of prep and then a 2-minute breath hold. And at that point, your blood oxygen saturation is somewhere in the low 60s, high 50s, which is crazy because just right now, just sitting here as we speak, my blood oxygen saturation is at 98.
You got some oxygen in there.
Plenty of oxygen. It dips down the minute you go back to regular breathing. It comes back up, but what you're doing is you're teaching your body to deal with higher levels of CO2, global CO2. And then you have O2 tables, which are very similar, and you teach your body to deal with lower global levels of oxygen. Both are stressors, and both teach your body how to operate either with more CO2 or with less O2. Both are necessary for free divers.
Yeah, because the free diving stuff is bananas in terms of their ability the tolerance for the lack of oxygen, right?
Well,
7 minutes?
that's the belief. It's not a tolerance for lack of oxygen.
The tolerance
It's a
of the
tolerance for
higher CO2.
CO2, higher CO2, because that's the thing that says that screams "breathe, motherfucker" in your ear. Like that. It's the CO2
Right.
that's screaming for you to breathe.
Hmm.
So a higher tolerance for CO2 allows you to, and a tolerance for low oxygen allows both of those things to occur at the same time. So your CO2 can go way up without you panicking, and your oxygen can go way down without you panicking. And you can do these deep, long sort of free dives.
Yeah, because there's an exercise supplement, right? A technique of doing exercise underwater such that it stresses the system in addition to the physical tissue damage associated with whatever work that you're doing. You layer on top, you do it underwater, and you can't breathe. That additional stress tends to have, as far as I'm familiar with the underwater training techniques that are being tried, has this double positive as you improve your capability both directions, it sounds like, right? Tolerance to higher levels of CO2, along with the ability to operate successfully with low O2 over time.
That's exactly right. And once you achieve a certain level of CO2, you get an effect, in which case you get a involuntary contraction of the spleen, which is filled with oxygen-rich blood. And so you get an involuntary contraction of the spleen, which just fills your body with this super oxygen-rich blood. So one of the practices they do is like 40-meter sprints, and they see how many 40-meter sprints you can do holding your breath back and forth, 40 meters back and forth. How many times can you go back and forth holding your breath? And when they practiced this over, I think, 6 weeks, they did a group that was only breathing through their mouth, only breathing through their nose, and then holding their breath. And the group that was holding their breath could go from their increase was like 150%. So at the end of 6 weeks, they could do 150 times more, or 150% more 40-meter sprints at full pace. Failure was described as losing speed. Right, you couldn't do it at the your 18-second pace or whatever
Right, whatever that, like,
whatever your baseline pace is.
Right, where you got to hit the 40 meters before the beep goes off again and stay at that pace rate,
Right.
Something like that.
Right.
So failure was not getting to the next 40-meter line before the beep went off. Something
Right.
like that,
So
testing
slowing appreciably.
Right. Falling off your ability, not failing because they passed out, but failing because they weren't able to achieve the distance in the same time frame.
Right. What could be described as peak performance.
Right. And so the suggestion was that the holding the breath folks were more capable rather than either of the breathing options. In nose only, mouth only, holding only was more successful.
That is exactly right. And what's funny is the doping that Armstrong was doing. What's his name? Lance Armstrong was doing, because he wasn't doing dope, he was getting infusions of highly, highly, highly oxygenated his own blood. If he had only trained the breath, he could have produced that exact same effect by getting the spleen to contract while he was writing. All you got to do is hold your breath, and you do it a few times. Your spleen contracts. You get this huge dose of hematocrit, which is a substance in highly oxygenated blood. It's basically fuel, which is what he was injecting, which is what he was getting IV transfers of, blood with a high ratio of hematocrit. And he could have actually achieved everything he achieved, not by cheating, but through very specific breath training. And he would have gotten the exact same results he was cheating to achieve.
So from a athletic performance standpoint, then the tolerance built up with what is traditionally assigned to free diving. The tolerances at both ends have athletic performance enhancements outside of free diving. Would the free divers then perform better than non-free divers at the same sort of muscle mass experience capability because of their tolerance levels?
No, because technique is different. Like you couldn't put a free diver in a race and think he was going to.
No, that's why I was saying at the same sort of, if they have 2-3 years of experience at a hobby, right, that competing against somebody of similar quality at whatever the endeavor is.
Yep.
Right. That they would perform better at that skill.
Wildly better. Wildly better.
Is that some of the images that you see of training facilities? I feel like the mask that you see them wearing is for tracking their CO2 oxygen levels, right, as they're riding the bike or doing, as opposed to maybe what you're describing, which is, it's the same thing that happens when people do altitude training, in effect.
And it's a restricting of the amount of air, therefore oxygen, that can get into the system. And you restrict further and further and further, then the body begins to
adapt,
to compensate. The body begins to adapt. The body begins to compensate. And now all of a sudden, it's tapping into resources that it wouldn't otherwise tap into. And like I said, you get this huge the involuntary contraction of the spleen is a last ditch like burst of energy to escape the wolf or climb out of the ditch or swim to the side of the river. Like that's what that is. Now, this is your last kind of opportunity.
It's the unladen swallows that I'm avoiding.
Yeah.
I mean, the wolf is fine, is a dangerous, but I mean, unladen swallows drop in to try to pick up things all the time. I gotta
100%.
I gotta stay away from them.
Yep.
I gotta be able to run away. And those swallows keep following you. And so you need that last ditch burst of capability that comes from the spleen saying, okay, fine, try this.
Yeah. Yeah.
A capitulation boost of juice.
Yes. Which, by the way, it fills back up with as soon as you start breathing again. Right. So you hold your breath, you're in exertion, you hold your breath a couple different times at like to absolute failure. And the third or fourth time you do it, your spleen contracts, right? And you get this huge burst of energy. And then you just go back to regular breathing and your spleen fills back up with blood. And then you can reproduce this effect sort of endlessly. The research on it is crazy.
And what's the free solo diving training technique I've seen it somewhere in terms of, is it the tables that you described?
Yeah. So it's running with breath holds or it's exertion with either a mask or with specific timed sort of breath holds, on a stationary bike, on a something. And so if you are in training and you want to increase your endurance, you switch from mouth breathing to nose breathing. Most of us, the minute we start exercising, we're breathing through the mouth. Mm-hmm. Breathe through the nose. There is a certain point of exertion where you can no longer breathe through the nose, but avoid breathing through the mouth as long as you can. And then once you're breathing through the mouth, and now you're at this high level of exertion, there's periodic breath holding that you can do. You don't want to do real long, but you can build longer and longer breath holds and doing series of 4 to 5 of them during exertion. So if you're a swimmer, like one entire lap of the pool, you do want a breath hold. Swimmers expand their lung capacity anyway. Because half the time their face is underwater, and so they end up with expanded capacity. But if you're running, cycling, whatever, periods where now you're at full exertion, breathing in and out through the mouth, begin training longer and longer breath holds, and then series of 5, 6, 7 breath holds and watching the performance.
Passing out and falling down.
Without passing out and falling down. Please don't do this on the side of a mountain by yourself.
Right.
Do this. If you're going to do this, do this in supervised training conditions.
I think there was some version of this in Nestor's book. Wasn't he running in Central Park and describing doing some of this process?
Yes.
And wasn't this also some of the training, CO2 training, some of that?
This book?
Yeah, right. Some of the CO2 experimentation that was going on where you step into a room and then they flood it with CO2 and you feel like you're suffocating.
You can't breathe.
Yeah, you're suffocating.
Yeah. And this is the other one. This is the other one, the Patrick McEwen, the Oxygen Advantage. Both of these talk about these types of exercises. Patrick more than Nestor.
Right. So back to your original discussion, techniques or practice or strength building prior to the high stress environment. So going through the process to improve your capacity. So when the high stress environment comes up, you're more capable at that moment, right? That's improving your capabilities ahead of time. And then within the moment, breathwork techniques so that as you are getting physiological signals of some kind, being able to manually counteract them. So say it's a high stress environment associated with a adrenaline dump at a fight or flight of some kind, that it's high stress environment that is accompanied by threats and physical safety, right? The breathwork techniques at that time different, similar? What the interventions to maintain the physiological triggers to go from that direction? Your physiology telling your brain you're safe, right? Rather than your brain trying to tell your physiology that you're safe, which we understand it's the wrong direction. But to go from physiology to cognitive, you may not have a lot of time, or hey, time out.
Everybody stops shooting.
Stop shooting for a second. I got to do some breath work. It takes me about 10 minutes. Takes me about 10 minutes of holds and a couple of, but if I'm alongside a sniper rifle, like what's the breathwork technique to settle the physiology at that, in those moments?
So it's literally just slowing down the breath. You slow down the breath, you slow down your heart rate. You slow down your heart rate, you change your brain state. So we were actually just talking about this less than an hour ago, which is super cool. So you're out in theater, you're on
or whatever
situation, you're out in the field. All of a sudden, shots start ringing out. Right, and you're now in a high stress situation. The first thing you're going to do is duck, make sure that you are out of the trajectory of the bullets.
Right. There's initial, seek a safety, right? Checking with your partners. You've got to assign some immediate roles and responsibilities.
Which everybody should kind of understand.
We drill in, right? We immediately
whose job
respond.
Is that?
Yep. I got back, you got front, you got left, you got right.
Right. The immediate next thing is slow, deep breath through the nose. If all you have time for is one will get you there. If you have time for two, but even as you're looking about, slow the breath, fix your eyes on a particular point. One of the things you can do is fix your eyes on something and expand your peripheral vision. Go into have the best posture you can. If you're ducking, you're covering under something.
Right, it's hard.
Maybe posture isn't the best possible thing. However,
hey, time out. I'm going to stand up for a second.
Yeah,
don't shoot.
To do a thing, but you fix your eyes on something, so you ground into the moment, right? Orient to safety, right? I'm breathing. I'm here. I'm out of the trajectory of the bullets in this moment, and just that second will drop your nervous system, so you are in a sympathetic body. So you got a huge squirt of adrenaline. You're in a high. You're in and you just slowed your breath, which means your neocortex and your frontal lobe just came back online. So your body is ready for action, but in your sympathetic nervous system, when you are in fight or flight, you lose your neocortex, you lose your frontal lobe. They're not available to you. Your
in addition to fine motor skills, right? There's other things that you lose at that time, which are super important if those are the kinds of tools that are important.
Right. Situational awareness, impulse control, all kinds of
peripheral vision, right? You know, the hyper focus that comes at those moments where you miss, important visuals or clues or other information.
Right. And so being able to take a moment and put your body into a parasympathetic state, where now you have all of those tools in a body that's flooded with oxygen, flooded with cortisol and norepinephrine and adrenaline, right? Because you just got that first adrenaline hit. So now you're ready and you can slow things down. So the protocol is to practice these things, just like getting on target on your weapon, to practice going into an immediate slowing of the breath, right? Picking an object and grounding immediately into this moment, slowing your breath and being able to like in the blink of an eye, just as fast, be able to activate those tools, just like, I mean, they teach in the Marines that slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah.
Right. And
No, the
so,
same statement was coming to mind, right? The slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Because the temptation is to believe that you don't have the moment, right? That better to react faster than to slow,
right.
right? That's the
And
temptation.
and a fast response with less cognitive capacity is not in your interest.
Right, right. Because
Right.
there's,
A,
you
a
know,
s-
lots of contexts like that. Racing, professional sports of any kind, right? Where it feels like the moment is not available to, as a resource to spend, right? And figuring out how to budget that appropriately.
when you watch fighters going into the cage, and you watch them kind of stomp down the aisle, and they're breathing and they're slapping themselves and each other and all this stuff, and you watch them take these great big deep breaths, and they're stomping when they're getting inspected and all of that stuff. And what they're doing is they're putting themselves into a sympathetic state, right? And then they go into the ring, and you watch them stomp across the ring, and they're taking the cage, and they're taking these big deep breaths. And then you watch every single fighter, and they all do the same thing. They get over to their cage, the camera pans away, they close their eyes, and they take a deep breath, because the body's now ready, and they just turned on the gray matter, because now what they need
They need that
is
plan.
tactical awareness.
Yeah, tactical awareness plan. They need to be able to be turned on mentally, right? Not just physically.
High executive functioning in this moment. That's where they turn on the fight IQ. That's where they turn on the tactical, the strategic thinking, is because now the body's ready. It's flooded with oxygen. It's flooded with blood. There's plenty of adrenaline. There's plenty of go fast in the fuel tank right now. There's plenty of go fast. And then you watch the same thing between rounds. Someone's going to put a bag of ice on their chest, putting their body into the mammalian dive response, and go, I need 4 deep, slow breaths, right? In through the nose. Like, they're slowing them down. They're putting them back into a parasympathetic state. Their body's fine. Their body's ready. What they need them to do is stop panicking, stop panting, stop fighting for air. You're getting all the air you need. Make you realize you're calm. You watch people train football offensive line, and they have them clap in front of their face and then put their hands out and wiggle their fingers, and you are extending your peripheral vision. So if you're running upright, you're now running, you're getting the most amount of air, and you've worked to increase your peripheral vision. You can increase your reaction time to somebody coming up beside you by like 1.5 seconds. And it's all breath, and it's all brain, and it is all so cool.
Yeah. No, because the I don't know how many different places we see it in life around the directionality of being able to reconnect the prefrontal cortex and the thinking, and to exit sympathetic response into parasympathetic, I think is the correct direction. Parasympathetic, more relaxed.
Yes. Rest and digest is parasympathetic. Sympathetic is fight or flight.
Right. Because of I remember seeing it the first time, and it dawning on me as trying to support a youth pitcher, right? So a baseball, softball pitcher is attempting to deliver a small round object to a very small target, takes a fair amount of fine motor skill and under a great deal of stress from all sorts. There's performance anxiety, there's, people watching, right? There's different, self-identity around the failure. Things aren't going well, right? There's hits or walks or other things, right? And so triggers all up and down. And then your source of safety, mentorship, training, development, trust, whatever, your coach steps up and just relax. Doesn't work, right? That misconnection of telling somebody throw strikes, relax, right? All of those directives, super unhelpful at that moment. Coming up with replacements that are effective, right? That add an intervention that changes the direction of that instruction, and practicing them, right, in periods as best you can recreate that stressful experience, and practicing the delivery of that intervention. and trying to do that in some way where you have access to it. Right? Because at some point you lose the capacity to deliver the intervention at all because you're just too far gone mentally. The stress, anger, frustration, sadness, reaction to the moment, the offering of the intervention won't connect at all because you're so far from that prefrontal cortex latching onto that idea. Just so
Right.
far above you, you're swimming, drowning underneath it. But that, was easy to see early in my parenting career, watch that play out and thinking, man, there's got to be a different skill set that coaches can be taught, that they can do and practice in a way that reintroduces fun and play, such that when that event takes place, the result is what is desired, but the instruction is different, right? It's not relax. It's not throw strike.
So it's not walking out to the mound and going,
Ooh, just relax.
look,
this is fine.
You need to get your act together. I'm going to pull you off the mound. It's do me a favor. Let's take
remember what we did. Remember what we did in practice. Remember that. It's time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hand me the ball.
Do the thing.
I want you to take three breaths with me. Just slow, deep breaths. Right. And then you got this. Right. You got this. There's no.
Remember we practiced this.
Yeah.
Right, we practiced this. Right. Remember what it was like in practice when we ran around and did that silliness and then we all stopped and took 3 deep breaths? Remember how your body felt?
Yep.
Now, as the umpire at this point, I may not give him enough time to get all the way through that process. So we got to figure out one that's less than 30 seconds. But
3 breaths, right? You go to the mound and you're like, okay, look me in the eye and breathe with me.
Here's the time to try the thing. Remember the thing?
Right. Let's go. Okay. And offer no other instructions.
Right. There is no room for instruction or technique. You can't rational your way back.
Start throwing strikes.
Right.
No.
Elbow up. Right. Focus on your big toe. Whatever the belief you're trying to deliver. Right. The kid's gonna have this is like in golfers will talk about this. When you're in the moment, whatever competition, golf competition, you got to use the swing that you have. Don't work on your swing, at the time. Your technique is what it is. Right. At that point, there is no opportunity to improve your swing. Same is true for that pitcher. Like, don't deliver instruction at that point. Right. Whatever the pitching stroke that is that kid has at that time, that's what you're stuck with. Right. The question is, can you reconnect that being, right, to, their body in a fashion where the feeling of safety and the seeing the catcher and the joy of throwing that ball at the catcher, right, reconnects in some fashion.
Right. And we can do this with parenting too, right? When my son was young, he'd be upset about something or something would be, or he was frustrated or whatever. And as parents, we either want to fix it or we want them to calm down. We want something. And once again, when our 6-year-old is wrapped around the axle about something, telling them to calm down doesn't work. What does work though is because kids will never do what you tell them. They will only do what you model, right? And so my son learned to purchase my attention with breath, right? So you have my full attention. I am interested in this. I am here for it. I will see you all the way through it. You buy it by taking 5 deep breaths with me right now. 5 deep breaths, and you have my undivided attention. You purchase my attention by regulating your nervous system. We didn't call it that, but that's how you purchase my attention. And it works with cooks. It works with all kinds of people. You purchase the thing that you want with me with a regulated nervous system, but you have to do it with them. Telling them to do it doesn't work. Just breathe, damn it.
I don't hear you breathing.
I am breathing.
Can you listen to me now?
It's not working, right?
My phone won't work.
Yeah.
Well, and this is, high stress environments now we're layering in communication, right? Where you have team members attempting to work together under different experiences of stress. So dispatcher, police patrol, right? Where somebody's attempting to deliver information to call in backup or whatever it is, their ability to communicate correctly to the recipient, right, is dependent on that connected ability to stay calm and receive that information, both sides. Right. The part
Which
of that
is
process.
why 911 operators are taught to talk very slowly.
Right.
I hear you. Tell me where you are.
Right.
Right. And there is a very specific cadence.
Tell me your name.
Yeah. Okay. What's your name? Are you safe right now?
Right.
Right. And there's a cadence because we want to shove every piece of information we can through the phone.
Sure.
and they are designed to get us talking, which means we're breathing.
The pause. Right. I'm John. There's a breath.
Right. So this makes me think of you when something happens in the market or something happens sort of globally, and all of a sudden you have, I see the old, old-timey 1970s phones with all the little lights like blink, the little light cubes at the bottom of the phone kind of lighting up, and you going into, the 2007, the day after the day the tariffs hit, where the stock market
Sure
plummeted.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's high stress environments for sure. Talking to people about the change in the value of their account and their anger and frustration, and being present for that. And even beyond that, right? The health issue, right? All of the different ways that somebody's day can go poorly, right? You're required to be present for that. Right. And in a fashion where your opportunity is not to emote back, right? That's not your role at that time, right? Your role at that time isn't to pick up and get infected by the emotion that is present. You are to deliver care, right? And, so emergency room physician, right? All of those places where you need to be present to deliver care into the situation and receive your own care somewhere else, right? And
Right.
to be able to process that and to receive what is present, deliver information, context, emotional connection into the moment that is the most caring for that party as you can, and prepare for that time where you can direct out, some of that damage that you've received, right? You can't be present for somebody whose wife died, right? Or whose, spouse is potentially experiencing a disease that is the front end of something horrific like cognitive decline, dementia, right? Just the worst days in people's lives. In addition to, investor in 2020, right, got started really investing. And then at the end of 2020, 2021, 2022, all of a sudden it's 20% less. And they're feeling stolen from and robbed and harmed. And, the anger and sadness and frustration and betrayal and being present to deliver information in the most caring way that you can doesn't necessarily always, I mean, it's in my practice, in my brain, in my moments, there tends to be, that initial trigger, which makes it hard for, my prefrontal cortex to stay connected, to be aware of what is important to deliver back. It's not a lashback or a reactive, right? And to be present for, what is the most valuable for this person at this time, right? It may not be I told you so, right? We had this conversation, right? I've delivered this information to you. You've acknowledged this information. You said you were prepared for this information, and now it's here. That may not be, while all that may be accurate, right? That may not be the most caring thing to deliver, and it may be, right? It's hard to know in the moment what that person needs. Is it the accurate information about what is true, or is it, something different that helps them to connect to? While physiologically sound as a recommendation, breathe with me is probably not what they're looking for as a recommendation at that time. Hey, I know your account balance just went from 2 million to 1.5, and it feels like somebody stole $500,000 from you. And I'd be pissed too. Like, I'd be sharpening up whatever I could come up with and figure out who took that from me. But before we source that, can you and I just breathe deeply for 5 minutes before we get into this?
So I'm gonna pose this to you because I'm curious. Someone calls you irate.
Yes.
In this exact
scenario.
Scenario.
Yep.
This exact scenario.
Yes.
Irate. They are angry at you.
Yes.
I
am the easiest source, right? I've made recommendations. They're mad at me that I failed from a competence level, a criminal, like, I've done things that benefit me at their expense. There's all sorts of anger that you could imagine at that moment. Yep. Okay.
So at that moment, and you get that call, which means your nervous system goes through the roof.
Through the roof. Yep.
Through the roof.
Yep.
Your heart rate starts going up. Your breath gets real short and shallow.
Short, for sure. Skin gets hot. Yeah, my skin gets a little hot. Yep.
All of the things.
I get all the things.
All of the things.
Yep.
That is your moment to model the behavior that is going to carry both of you through.
Yes.
Right? So we're going to get through this. I need you to know this is not the end of the world.
But I'm happy to explore. We should open this up to crisis intervention counselors with training in this area.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that it often is more powerful for my angry and frustrated individual to match them first.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So before I can calm, right, I got to connect.
Sure. No,
maybe not information, but matching can often, as I think about it, how I understood the training that I was delivered for this sort of crisis communication to try to get, there may be situations where it's beyond repair, right? But can you get this person to a better place, regardless of whether they're using me or somebody else in the future, right?
In that moment, whether you continue to have a business relationship is not on the table. We're not talking about that right now. That's not where we're going. You go, I hear you. And what you can do is if you take the breath first and you calm your nervous system, then you can meet them without meeting them in the anger and panic. Chris Voss would describe it as mirroring.
Yep. Yeah. So Voss is one of those, right? Don't Split the Baby, I think, is the book that he...
never split the difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Never split the difference. Never split the baby?
Never split the baby. That's a way other book. It's similar.
Never split the difference. Never split the difference.
Never split the difference.
Right.
Chris Voss.
Chris Voss, FBI negotiator, right? Mirroring first, right? So yes, I need to have the skills once my sympathetic nervous system has been triggered. Right now, my fight or flight autonomic response is going. I need interventions that I can operate while mirroring, right? At that time. So as the mirroring connects to match pace, tone, energy level, the information may be very different, right? And all of the other cues, because information is a very small piece of the communication that is delivered, right? Pace, tone, quality, body language, if I can communicate it, sometimes hard by phone, but it depends on how we're connecting, right? So eye contact, body language, the lean, all of those things, the actual information is a very small piece until we can get to third or fourth order question or curiosity or follow-up. Tell me again, help me understand in particular. I understand that you said value change, and I don't mean to demean this, but what in particular are you the most frustrated about in this moment, right? So this is often the conversation has been more common over the last couple of years about political issues. Somebody is hot about a particular political issue, and before jumping in, you got to mirror, match, and then try to make sure that we're clear. Tell me in specifics, what are you the most concerned about as it relates to your wealth?
Right. So I'm gonna drop in an intervention. I'm gonna drop in and interrupt. Right? They come in hot. I hear you. Take a breath with me. Okay. I don't want to take. Okay. And here it comes. And here it comes. John, I don't want to take an effing breath with you.
You're fucking fired.
Right?
I'm calling because you're fired.
Cool.
Because you just asked me to take a motherfucking breath.
Right.
And how is that going to help me that, $500,000 of my hard-earned capacity is gone?
Because I'm not going to talk to you unless you take a breath with me.
Oh, man.
I cannot engage this conversation with you in this state. I need you to take a couple breaths.
Yeah, that's tough, right?
Well, and this is you holding a standard for how you will communicate with people who are in crisis.
Yes.
And you are aware that they are not in danger. They are not aware that they are not in danger.
Right.
You
Their
are aware.
energy comes from that sense of feeling like they are in danger.
Their body is responding as though there is a wolf standing in front of them.
Yes.
And you put it there.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
So you are clear that there is not a wolf standing in front of them. You know this. And so it is your job as a leader at that moment, as the person who needs to take command of this situation.
You're going to buy my attention with 5 breaths from me. We're going to get into the details.
Start with 1. I hear you. You're at an 11.
Dave,
I need you around a 6.
Dave, it sounds like you're pretty angry and frustrated, and I understand that. I'd like to get into this with you. And before we start, can we begin with a big, deep, slow breath together?
Please. Yep. That's it.
Man,
right?
the balls that would take.
Are your clients paying you to have balls?
Yes.
They
Big
certainly are.
old fat hairy ones, for sure.
They trust you to tell them the things that they're not going to like. I mean, they have put their hard-earned money in your hands, and they trust you to deliver good news and bad news dispassionately, regardless of how they approach you. They have put that belief in you that you can deliver good financial news or bad financial news dispassionately. That's why they've
An
invested
honest assessment.
Honest
and delivery
assessment.
of the information that will help them the most.
Right? 100% sounds good. Here you're angry. You have good reason to be. Take a breath with me real quick, okay? We don't need to say 3. We don't need to say whatever. Do me a favor. Let's take a deep breath. All right, Tom, give me one more. We're going to get into this.
Tom, it wasn't you. Tom, it wasn't you.
Right. Okay. But literally telling somebody, Tom, you're at an 11. I need you to run a 6. I need you to take a breath with me. I need you to stop. I need you to take a deep breath. We are going to get through this, but I need you to stop and take a breath.
I'm going to make sure that you get through this. I'm not sure again, this is nitpicky, right? They're hearing at that time from a language standpoint is a very much I, you, right? And we is hard to hear, I think, at that point.
Right.
I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you get through this.
Yeah.
In the best possible fashion. And for us to process the strategies and tools that are going to make the most sense, I need you at a 6.
Right. Yeah. I cannot have a conversation with somebody who's yelling. Cool. Sounds good. Take a deep breath. Just stop and take a deep breath with me real quick. And yeah.
Let me give you another example.
Yep.
Let's imagine hypothetically that you are an umpire in a competitive youth baseball and softball league. Occasionally, in that context, it is sometimes true that the coaches who are assigned to manage and operate those teams communicate in an energetic fashion that may not match necessarily what they're trying to accomplish. They're yelling, angry, and in a similar fashion, you could interact in that moment. But my intuition tells me you got to do that delicately. Otherwise, it goes a different direction. Because in that situation, you don't necessarily have a connected relationship around an aligned goal. And I say,
right.
In that situation, sometimes you do have a defined adversarial relationship.
And because you don't get to control or influence their emotional state, you get to be in charge of your own.
Right.
Which means this guy starts yelling. He wants to raise the emotional stakes.
Right.
And before responding, you go, we're going to talk about this. We're not going to yell about it.
Right.
And he starts yelling and you go, yeah, I said, we're going to talk about this and we're not going to yell. And he wants to yell about it. And you go, we cannot continue if you're going to yell about it. Right. And that is you being and throw the coach out, end the game. It doesn't matter. Right? You can go, I will not be spoken to. This is a child's game. Yes, it's competitive. This is a bunch of children playing a competitive game. I will not be spoken to like that by a parent, by a coach, or by anybody else. If you have a grievance, we can talk about it. You are not going to spit your grievance at me. And that, once again, this requires you to be emotionally regulated and have all the balls on the field.
And then because as an umpire, there's plenty of pause to reconnect before and after the triggering event. So imagine hotly contested play. You deliver your adjudication as best you can based on the information that is available to you. in my judgment, the following actions took place. You make your call and you move on. And that will often trigger its own, right? But then the next play is starting to develop. The next pitch is about to be delivered. And you do have 10, 20, 30 seconds of time where you could reapply a breathwork technique to recenter yourself, right? To goldfish memory, right? Unremember the event that just took place so you can be present, as unencumbered as possible with what's happened in the past so that it doesn't affect your decisions in the future. Is it a 5, 8, 12? Is it just slow?
It's just slow because that's the best in the moment. And I'm gonna do this because there's no better way to express this than this right now.
Shoulders.
The heart sends 60 times more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. If you want to control your brain state, you have to control your heart rate.
Yes.
The only way to control your heart rate is to control your respiration. So slow the breathing down, right? Yeah, there's a million different breathwork techniques, but the one lever we get into our autonomic nervous system is the one lever we get is the breath. And so if you understand that they call the minimum viable product is just one deep, slow breath and a long exhale, if that's all you have time for, it's enough. And it can get you there because what it does, the visualization I like is, remember Terminator 2 and the T-1000 was attacking them in that hospital, and Sarah and John Connor run into and the Terminator run into the elevator, and the doors close, and the T-1000 shoots his hands into that thing, but his hands become hooks and pry that door open, right? So one deep breath is what gains you access. Right? The release, that's the hooks, right? And the next breath is what gets you there. So no, there's no in the moment of intensity, just a slow, intentional in this moment breath will buy you every single thing you need. It buys you that moment of pause to take the next one. Right. So the emotional response to your call, to your adjudication of a play happens as coach walks over shouting whatever he's shouting. Your immediate response, all right, here we go, right, is this.
Right.
Because his emotional response does not require an emotional response from you.
Correct. It's information being delivered at his problem, not necessarily on my problem. I'm not required to adopt any information based on the emotion that he's delivering. And it's hard, right? As a human being, somebody's yelling at you, they are mad. The natural response is to not make people mad, by and large.
Right.
And so, crowds, right? Other human beings, people that you're ostensibly there to help, right? The game doesn't get completed in a fashion that allows the athletes to experience everything that the sport has to offer, which, by the way, includes losing, right? To have delivered something in a fashion that it makes you feel like you have poorly executed what you've practiced to deliver, right? Triggers all sorts of, sympathetic fight or flight responses, right? And so to imagine, all right, we have 100 rookie umpires that we're teaching basic rookie umpire stuff, right? Have them do 20 jumping jacks and then turn around and practice the deep breath, right?
One deep breath. Deep breath. A better one is you practice the deep breath, okay, and you orient to safety, and then have one parent walk toward one of those umpires and start barking at them. Because the truth is, as an umpire, I want to feel like I'm doing my job well.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And when that's being threatened,
yes.
Right? So someone is challenging that, I'm going to go into fight or flight, and I'm going to begin defending the job that I'm doing.
Yes.
Right? Or you can practice. As soon as somebody starts barking, your immediate response is take a deep breath, orient to the safety. I am not in danger. I am not in trouble. I am in
Is that what you
charge.
mean by orient to the safety? Take me through
Yeah.
that as a concept.
As a concept. So when we talk about orienting to safety, when you take a deep breath, you are telling your body is telling your mind that you're breathing just fine. Find a fixed point, any fixed point, and just lock onto it. It brings you into this moment. In this moment, you are safe, right? This guy wants to threaten your
Identity,
job and
role,
your
your
career, your role. He
perception
wants
of
to.
confidence, your prestige in the community, right? Ridicule, whatever gets triggered.
None of those things make you unsafe in this moment. None of those things are unsafe for you in this moment. So when you identify, find a color, see what you can smell, identify what you can hear. All of these things bring you into this moment. And in this moment, you are safe. If he has a bat in his hand, right, then you respond
Right.
to then you respond to a threat, right? But taking a deep breath enables you now to respond to a threat better than, than an emotional response. So if parent, coach, whatever, somebody takes an issue with my job as an umpire and they take issue with it at volume, right? Which they tend to, when we go, he doesn't have a bat in his hand. I don't think he's going to punch me. I am completely safe in this moment. And you take that deep breath, then you drop out of fight or flight. You drop out of your sympathetic nervous system. You go into your parasympathetic nervous system. When you go into your parasympathetic nervous system, you get your neocortex back. When we are in fight or flight,
that's when you'll remember the correct words to say, right? That's when you can re-engage whatever training and practice that you have.
Yes.
That's when your window opens back up to deliver with excellence whatever you've been trained to deliver.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And so it works the same in a fight, in a war zone with an upset customer, on a softball field,
right,
as I've experienced on the tournament mat in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Correct.
The whole
There's a
thing,
threat of safety taking place when you're jiu-jitsuing. Yes and no. I mean, there's still rules.
Understanding threat assessment, right? If somebody's got me in a headlock, but I'm breathing just fine, I am safe, right? There's, and learning the difference between sucks and submission is important. And really that's been the sort of crux of all the work that I've done, is understanding the difference between this sucks and I'm unsafe, right? When I was a chef, right? The kitchen drops into the shit. Everything is going wrong. Is this insanely uncomfortable or is it unsafe? It's insanely uncomfortable. I don't like this. I have angry people out there. People are not getting the experience that I obsess about delivering. They are not having the experience. They're not getting the thing that I obsess, that my entire life is built around delivering. Right? But I'm safe, right? That's when we take one step back, take 3 deep breaths. We look at the tickets. We look at the line. We find out where everything is. You get the call from everybody. Where is everybody right now? Okay, here's our next pickup. We're doing 1 ticket at a time. I need this. I need this. I need this. I need it in the window in under 60 seconds. Next ticket is this and this and this. Those plates follow the first plates. We're going to crawl out of this until we are at speed again. If I turn around and start going, what the hell is the matter with you guys? You're making me look terrible.
Right.
This whole thing sucks. It doesn't work, because that means that I don't believe myself to be safe in this moment. I am responding.
You're attacking back, right? In a fashion.
I'm attacking back. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament. I'm in a bad position. Yeah, I'm in a bad position. Am I safe? This sucks. It may even hurt. Is it dangerous? Is there a bone going to be broken? Is there a joint that's being threatened? Is blood or air being threatened? No, this sucks. But as soon as it sucks and I can identify that it sucks and take a deep breath and lower back into my parasympathetic nervous system, now I get back into strategic thinking. Now I get back into tactical awareness. I can go, okay, what do I need to do? Rather than react, respond, flail, shout back, insult somebody's mother, like whatever the emotional response would be, I now have a measured response that comes from a a deeply centered, grounded, safe place.
Sucks or submission.
Right. Does this just suck or
Right.
am I in danger?
Right.
Parent starts barking, code starts barking. You are not in danger. So if you orient to the safety, I'm fine. I don't know what, there's no danger that this guy poses to me at all in this moment. This game's gonna end whether we do this or not. We're all walking off the field just fine. I don't need to respond emotionally to this guy's emotional response. It's what you volunteered for when you volunteered to be an umpire. It's what people pay you for when they hand you giant piles of their money.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Absolutely true. And it's, back to that crisis moment, right? The Chris Voss, the FBI negotiator, sharp point of the spear, right? The officer, right? There's lots of situations that are specific physical threats and lots of situations that trigger the same emotional response. Right? The tools can be similarly applied. There's different context within which you got to be thoughtful about it, but figuring out in those moments, take back the example of the client with the investment portfolio value change, anger, frustration, sadness, triggering. The wolf is in front of me and you put the wolf here, delivered at me. I am the cause, right? The lack of confidence, miscommunication, the fraud, whatever it is that a feeling has triggered this situation. Often the you should have seen it coming will often come up as a knock, delivering into that space, right? In a fashion that leverages some of the other research or knowledge around crisis communication. I mean, you do need, I think, mirroring is helpful, right? The tone and quality and still connecting in some fashion does take large amounts of courage and vulnerability to demand. To be successful in this communication, we need to join together and take in a big fat deep breath, right? And whatever that moment offers. Yeah,
and this requires practice on your part,
right.
Right? If we want to be leaders in our
Right.
families, in our businesses, in our communities, on the softball field, wherever it is, we need to take the first step. We need to take the initiative. We need to make sure, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? So, which means that I need to practice emotional regulation tools. Even poorly executed in moments of crisis is better than no emotional regulation tools.
Yeah. No, I think it's the practice piece that, I think it's underdeveloped over time. Figuring out creative ways to approximate as best you can and approximate the charged moments that physically produce as best you can the physiological response. To practice finding and retrieving and applying the tool in those moments is challenging. You and I talk about, what do you meditate on when you're practice sitting still and triggering either intentionally or allowing to come up the mental garbage, right? Might you use those meditation moments to intentionally create in your mind those scenarios and like visualization techniques, right? Just visualize applying those slow, deep breaths at that moment. Do the vision techniques get strong enough such that you can have some amount of physiological response? Like I imagine if you're reimagining a stressful moment, your physiology responds. Heart rate picks up.
Right. For sure. A better way to do it is to begin practicing in the mundane, right? So in traffic.
Right. Find similarly charged environments that you might leave yourself a to-do list to be aware of and notice.
In traffic, commit to one leg of your commute. I will not do any traffic muttering anytime, right? Okay. So I will not do any traffic muttering. Anytime that I want to have a comment, I will take a deep breath and say nothing. Right. That way, when the email comes in with the subject in all caps,
right,
before I open it, I'm going to take a deep breath and then I'm going to open it. After I read it, before I hit reply, I'm going to take a deep breath. When the phone call comes in and the doctor you've been waiting 6 months to see cancels your appointment, before saying anything, take a deep breath and get yourself in the habit of responding to elevated stress situations, even slightly elevated stress situations,
Sure. Family
with a
member
regulating
stress,
response.
right? There's all sorts of stress triggers around behaviors and identity
Sure.
that you've inherited over time that are going misidentified, right? And patterns of behavior trigger natural responses, trying to redirect those.
The guy walking right in front of you in Costco and then stopping.
I'm going to try to get my son my son has triggering angers over airport walkers. People who are walking in the airport and will stop in the middle of the thoroughfare, like, "Hey, I'm trying to get to my gate on time and you've stopped here." Like, it's just a triggering anger flare for him, for sure. See if I can't
Give
get
him
him.
a big hug and tell him I get it. And I could deal with 4 steaks just came back either raw or burned,
Right.
right? And I could deal with that if you stop in front of me at the airport and not go over to the side, but just stop with all of your shit,
Right. Yes.
and stop. Yeah, I lose my shit.
I do find that I think because my day job does include the requirement that I behave under very high stress environments, especially with people who are charged. And I've
Uh-huh.
received some amount of limited training, 20 years ago, some amount of limited training to be present with people who are going through stressful situations. So I got some of that sort of, call it non-clinical, stressful, being a good listener training. But even the job that I have, right, being able to deal with people, situations, and contexts that don't go the way that you like, and being able to decouple the emotional response so you can get through the issue faster. I do find that experience over the last 10 years, for sure, 20 years, even more, um, I'm starting to see has opened up a gap between me and others that I know in my ability to have a greater gap between emotionally charged occurrence and how I react, right, compared to some of my peers. I think it's that experience, right, that I've had to learn adaptations without, learning the actual techniques that would have made that faster.
Right. And so all of these, and this is a great conversation. So all of these are peak performance techniques, right?
Mhm.
And they work with SWAT teams,
Right.
they work with SEAL teams, they work with bomb squads, they work with high school softball umpires,
Yeah.
they work with wealth management, they work with in a professional kitchen. All of these things, all of these techniques, this is not, take a moment and breathe. You want to slap the person who said that, but if you make it a condition of dealing with you,
Yeah.
cool.
Or,
Take a deep breath. Let's go.
part of the challenge in many of our relationships, we try to deliver information into the relationship to be ready for those moments, right? To pre-position the reaction to one of at least a pause. The ideal is to get people excited, right? Can I get somebody to the opposite reaction? Market's gone down. Can I get you to the point where you're excited? Because by and large, in a lot of situations, that's where the opportunity lies. But at least the promise, right? The promise and the proof that, like, could you double blind study, figure out successful investors over a longer period of time have a better set of tools to deal with stressful situations than the others, right? It isn't the knowledge, right? Could you double blind study and prove back to people, the information gap is no longer the advantage between investors. The technology is no longer the gap between investors, right? In terms of part of the reason why some technology-driven systems can outperform, human-based systems is because the technology doesn't have fear, sadness, grief, identity, right? It's executing on, academic research, literature-based, strategies that should play out over time. That education to offer when you and I get to a charged conversation, right? One of the things that will help you be more successful over longer periods of time is your practicing heart rate regulation during those periods of stress. right? And deliver that as an additional point of education and training to the investor. I know you want to hire me, and I'm going to do my absolute best. What I would love more than anything else is to deliver a world-class experience to you beyond your wildest expectations. And there may come a time where there's a charged interaction between you and I. And here's a literature to suggest that the best investors in your role that do the best over longest periods of time are the ones that at the most energized moment in whatever market conditions possible. The best investors have a series of tools that they've practiced ahead of time such that they are ready to emotionally regulate during those periods of stress. That education, much more powerful than the first time we have this conversation is when you're mad at me.
I have a mentor who says, don't learn how to fight in a fight. Right? Don't learn how to emotionally regulate in a charged situation.
Right.
Take the initiative.
No,
learn a couple basic techniques. So when these
delivering the information to come up with a contract, right?
Right.
Do you and I agree, as you hire me, that it may be true that we will find ourselves in a very charged situation? Could we agree, you and I, that we're going to attempt to follow a couple of steps to maximize our opportunity to profit from that charged moment, whatever it means, right? Like you said, don't learn to fight in the fight. The golf analogy, the swing you have on the tee box is the one you get. Don't learn to swing it, but don't practice something new right in the middle of your tournament, right? In the youth pitching example, you're not going to show up on the mound and teach the kids something that's going to make them a better pitcher at that time. Grip the ball different. Lift your elbow. Lean farther left. Focus on the mitt. Throw strikes. That's my favorite. Throw strikes.
Right.
Right. That success.
Just calm down.
Right. Just calm down. Calm down. Deep breaths.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And instead, if you take a deep breath without instructing it.
Right. You do infect others. Right. That process does slow the whole community.
Well, because you are injecting a pause.
Right.
You are injecting, and just like the 911 operator who is asking questions at cadence, you are injecting
triggering
a pause.
Whatever, reverse mirroring, right? Rather than mirroring when you call in, there may be some tone and energy and redirecting it back to a slower, once you've connected, mirroring, then intentionally slowing is how you change the cadence, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
which may just be like, I hear you. You sound pissed off. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You're goddamn right. I'm pissed off. Like, cool. Awesome.
What in particular are you the most pissed off about?
Right. Right. Do me a favor. Take a deep breath. Tell me what you're most pissed off about.
A deep breath. Let's go through the list, motherfucker.
Right. Take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath. Tell me what's first. I can take it. What's next? Take a deep breath. Let's go through them all.
Right.
That's only money. Just relax. It'll be fine.
Right. Right. Never in the history of calming down has anyone ever calmed down by being told to calm down.
Oh, it's coming. The first time's coming, I'm sure. It's right around the corner.
Right. So, yeah, and so these skills are, we frame them in our, in this conversation, but they are such universal skills that I think we get away from and require institution before the event.
Well, by and large, the excitement around an intervention, everybody wants a magic bullet, right? I would like to be more productive. I would like to accomplish more in a shorter period of time, more efficiently, more value, less work, blah, blah, blah. There is a series of early adopters that are going to try anything. There's a set of early majority who are watching what the early, adopters do, right? There's a whole continuum of people who are willing to it. The demonstrating that mere humans have applied a series of interventions that made them uniquely prepared such that they're open to the concept, open to the practice, open to the effort, open to the knowledge and applying the knowledge that it's physiology to cognitive, not cognitive to physiology. Like you said, you can't learn to fight the first time you're in a fight. I saw this once on the movies.
Right. In a fight is a terrible time to learn how to fight.
You're going to learn a lot in the fight that you do poorly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so the way we prepare and the way that we serve others, because I always want to frame it like this: the way that I serve others best, the way that you serve others best, is when we go first, right? I practice emotional regulation first, right? So that way, when you are emotionally unregulated, when you are emotionally dysregulated, you meet an emotionally regulated me. And I can either invite you into emotional regulation, or I can set a boundary with your dysregulation. I
Right.
will not engage dysregulation. You
Right.
can either regulate and we can find our way through this, or you cannot regulate and F off.
We can wall this off in some capacity, and we may find ourselves in a situation where my efforts to have the greatest positive impact on you is not being received in a fashion that you can apply. And we've reached the end of our opportunity to support you.
Right,
I need
right,
to redirect you in some other fashion, because I'm at
right.
the end of the tools that I find will be helpful to you in some form or fashion. And I'll take a good, I mean, we've invested time and energy and effort to build connection and gather data to be able to deliver information to you in a fashion that will have the greatest positive effect. We've talked about preparing for, and maybe we don't practice enough, like with our clients, do we have a practice session? Right? Hey, we're going to do a check-in in August. During that check-in, we're going to pretend that something bananas has taken place and the value in your account has changed in a surprising negative way. And that session is going to be geared around intentionally triggering and practicing what are we going to do and why.
Right. James Sexton, the New
Yeah, how do
York
I know that name?
New York divorce attorney. He's
Yep,
terrific.
yep,
And what he talks about in with prenups
yep,
is the thing that he talks about is while we are in love, right?
yes,
While we're talking about getting married, so we are in love, we are going to decide then how we are going to treat each other when this is no longer true about it, right? We are going to decide now how civilly we are going to dissolve this thing when we are really, really angry at each other, right? And so that is the purpose of a prenup, is to decide now when we are in love, when I think about you highly and I feel about you super well, I am going to decide now how I'm going to treat you when that's not how I feel about you anymore, right? Because I want to decide how we're going to end this before we're ending it. And it's really brilliant, and I think that it probably saves, it probably doesn't save marriages, but it probably saves a lot of ugly divorces, right? You know, we decided what this was gonna, if this thing ever comes to an end, we have decided how we were gonna conduct ourselves with the ending of it, you know? And so setting up with clients, setting up like there will come a time when you're gonna be super angry at me, because I promise I am going to fail you. I promise. At some point in our relationship, I am going to fail you. I'm going to give you some advice that didn't go well. I'm going to offer a suggestion to you. It's not going to land right. I'm not going to deliver it well. I'm going to hurt your feelings. Something is going to happen. And so when that happens, I expect you to be able to take a deep breath and go, I'm super crazy pissed at you right now. Right? Like I'm super, like this did not go well. Right. But if we level set expectations by going, I promise that I'm going to fail you at some point in our relationship, and you are going to be insanely angry with me, know that when you call me, email me, or barge into my office, I'm going to ask you to take 3 deep breaths before anything else. That's all I want. But I'm going to ask you in your most heated moment, I'm going to ask you to take 3 deep breaths. And I'm going to need you to do it before we can move on.
that GPT version that's replacing me in a few years is going to do that super great.
Yep. Right. But this is setting boundaries, right? This is teaching people how to engage with us.
Right.
Here's how I'm going to engage with you. Here's how I expect you to engage with me.
Yep.
Right. Even when we're angry, we operate at a level of respect that is not negotiable, because I don't negotiate the respect I'm willing to receive.
Yeah, and I guess where I go is not even just out of respect. The desire that I want to instill or ignite in my counterparty is the excitement that if we do this right during those periods of stress, if you apply these tools, you will do better financially. right, in other situations, right? Not only are we going to try to create the context where we're going to talk through and practice a series of steps or, talk through a series of things that you might try to apply at that time to reduce the negative effect of the stress in that situation. Could we get to the point where not only have we reduced the negative stress, but we put you in the right mindset to capitalize and that it's, it is very easy to say that fortunes are made when everybody else is scared and angry and frustrated and selling their stuff, right? And blood is running in the streets. It's very easy to say that. The hardest part is that nobody wants to buy it because whatever's going on is scary and frustrating and leading rational people to decide to sell their stuff. And the opportunity is to leverage a misalignment of time expectation and say, it may be that they're sad and angry and frustrated about something that is terrible and short term. And I'm willing to, from a time alignment standpoint, think on a different scale and take advantage. Maybe there's a misalignment of time expectation that I could use, but it takes effort to reignite the connection that you have with your prefrontal cortex to be willing to figure out, are there ways to tease apart what is noise and what is insight at those times, right? That energy that you have is being triggered by sources of information that appear to be masquerading as sources of insight, but are really just getting you to watch, right? That they're triggering your emotional state around anger and sadness and frustration. And they're delivering data to you in a fashion that highlights that feeling.
Intentionally, generally.
Right. And so with that knowledge and a couple of sets of tools, could you build processes such that you could not only reduce the energy's effect on you at that time to connect to your prefrontal cortex, but then also put you in a position to potentially leverage the opportunity that is present at that time, which is easier said.
And we can take that example and we can extrapolate it when bullets are whizzing overhead, right? Taking the moment to take a deep breath and assess the situation rather than cutting and running, right?
Yeah. Or again, using the firearms example, it takes small, fine motor skills to correctly operate those tools at scale, right?
Okay.
At 50 yards or 100 yards or 500 yards, right? To reach out at scale to affect somebody with a tool like that in a charged environment downrange, however you want to describe it, the capability to deliver effectiveness with that tool over distance, very small changes in your physiology have a dramatic effect on your impact with that tool. Right. And so every change in your level and capability to deal with the physiological changes of that time and to reset that is got to magnify your effectiveness, right? If you want to hit something at a mile, you can't have, the difference between a 70 beats per minute and 60 beats per minute is not small. It's enormous. And you're probably at 150.
And it's the exact same as when you spend 8, 9, 10 hours of work, and you get home and you have a 7-year-old who is in absolute meltdown.
Right.
And mom's at the end of her rope.
Right.
And what is going to be how do you capitalize on this moment to strengthen relationships?
Yeah, it's like you described the spleen, right? Can your system breathe back in capacity and margin for a different context, right? If you've spent all of your capability to be resilient to the stressful situation that was your work jungle with the wolf, and now you're stepping into the home jungle and you've totally outstripped your capability to be present at that time, is there a way to re-breathe in some amount of tools? Because that's part of that challenge. How do you be present for a different triggering event such that you can deliver into that situation for everyone who's present? What I really wanted was to recover from all of my dopamine dumps or whatever, It's not dopamine at that, the cortisol dumps that I got for the last 9 hours, right? I've got a little dopamine dump hangover. I wanted to just sit peacefully for a few minutes, and I got a different set of cortisol dumps around 7-year-olds or expense tickets. This is back to your wealth questions over long periods of time. Do you end up coping with cortisol dumps by buying or spending or mismanaging finances where you're applying issues in one area just to medicate yourself in another?
Knee-jerk behaviors are knee-jerk behaviors, regardless of whether they're financial with a child on a a softball field, whatever.
Mhm.
Knee-jerk behaviors are knee-jerk behaviors, and they have the same sort of lasting effects, right? And they're rarely positive. They're rarely net positive. They can often, end a situation in that moment, generally by creating more damage than solve. And so what does this have to do with the flow of money? What does this have to do with anything? What are these guys talking about? I thought this was about money.
I thought we connected it back pretty well.
Right,
Managing
right,
finances comes with buying the right resources, making good decisions, especially under periods of stress. During
right.
periods of stress, are you using, other coping mechanisms outside of that to medicate over? So you're overspending the resources that you should be setting aside that generate income or grow over time, as well as being more productive during stressful environments makes you more valuable, increase your pay, increase the value that people want to deliver to you. I think there's all sorts of aspects of improving the tools and skill sets and capacity, which is why I'm endlessly fascinated on how to improve and practice my own breath work, my own carbon dioxide. What I got a capability,
CO2 thresholds, right?
CO2 thresholds, right? Yeah, my tolerance for CO2 and my tolerance for the lack of oxygen, both. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all the same, right? It's all life. The work-life balance. What is that? It's all life.
Like, can you deliver into moments of energized change, a calming prefrontal cortex connected capacity to be productive? It should put you in a position, regardless of who you are and what you do, to create value for yourself or your community, however you want to measure it,
Right.
financially or otherwise.
Right. Or anything else. 100%.
How to pee.
John O'Day, another great conversation. I appreciate you, brother.
You're the best.
All right. I will see you Thursday.
Go get him, kid.
Thanks for listening to the Flow of Money podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Learn more about John and Dave at theflowofmoneypodcast.com. If you liked this episode, share it with someone who's ready to step into flow. If you're interested in sponsorship or collaboration, we'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Hey, before you go, this is John O'Day here for the quick note. I am affiliated with Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC, and my investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc. Dave Gieselman, my partner, is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services. Any opinions are mine and Dave's. These opinions are not necessarily those of Raymond James. Every investor situation is unique, and you should consider your investment goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon before making any investment decisions. Neither Raymond James Financial Services nor Raymond James Financial Advisors render any tax advice. Tax matters should be discussed with your tax advisor. This podcast is for investor education purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment advice. Consult your investment advisor before making investment decisions.